Welcome to Campus Conversations, brought to you by UCL Student Success Team, your go-to podcast for all things about student life at University College London. We're back for Season 2, and today we'll be talking about power, justice, and moral boundaries. I'm Amman, I'm a fourth-year medic.
I'm Mubaraq, I'm a second-year law student.
I'm Abubakar, first-year sociology and political science student.
So today our theme is power, justice, and moral boundaries, and we have a bunch of cards on the table, and we're talking about a lot of different news items related to those topics. So we've got a question at the end that we'll have to discuss. Are you ready? Cool. So up first is, here's the news item. On 20th of June 2025, the House of Commons passed the Terminally Ill Adults End-of-Life Bill by 341 votes to 291. The bill would legalise assisted dying for the terminally ill people in England and Wales who have a prognosis of 6 months or less. As part of the plan, 2 independent doctors must approve each case with assistance from an oversight panel. If the bill becomes law, it's expected to be implemented by 2029. That's a juicy one, isn't it? It's got law and it's got medicine. It's a nice mix. You're also there. So the first question for us is, what are your thoughts about assisted dying? Should people have the absolute right to choose when and how they die? I'm curious about your non-medical opinions to start with.
Me, I don't think assisted dying is an option because it's basically just like a glossier way of saying suicide, because you are killing yourself even if somebody else is helping you do it. So I think it's too defeatist. I think even if you don't have much time left, try to enjoy what you have with what little time you have left.
From my perspective, I think it's really a question of what type of life is worth living, essentially, because I think we should strive, like the government and policy should strive to make sure that people live a good life. And I think at the point where someone is considering euthanasia, perhaps life isn't as great for them. They're likely dealing with a type of illness that makes what is left of their life quite unbearable. So I think there's definitely an argument for and against.
Yeah, I think an important point that actually my medic brain is coming out. Euthanasia is different to assisted dying because euthanasia is where the doctor's actually doing the final act, like end to life. But then assisted dying is like you're saying, it's closer to suicide where you have to take the medicine yourself and you do the act. And I think, but then there is the distinction, it's assisted. So I would argue it's similar to suicide, but it's quite different in that there's a whole panel of doctors, there's people who have to discuss it with you, and it's a conversation where you're supported to make a decision for yourself.
But I still feel like you shouldn't give up, because even though you might not have long left, it's still giving up, because you could spend that time with your loved ones, you could tick things off your bucket list, just like live life to the fullest before it ends. What's it called? Like make your peace with the world. And I think ending that prematurely is like, I just don't think it's the right thing to do, and I don't think it's beneficial to your life in the long run, because if you just end it before you get the chance to like fully experience it, I don't think that's, I just don't think it's good.
But do you think these patients have the capacity to live to the fullest, like you're saying? Or, because a lot of them will be bedbound or just stuck in the hospital getting treatments that aren't treating them, they're just preventing anything from happening at that point.
I feel like, in my opinion, I think if modern medicine's solution was we're going to offer people assisted dying when they come across like a medical problem that they don't want to deal with, I don't think we would be where we are in modern medicine today. I think there's so many illnesses that we've strived to find a cure for, and I don't think we would have that same readiness to do if doctors just gave up at the end. So what I mean to say there is, your argument is kind of people are ill to a certain extent and then they kind of give up and then this is a solution. But I think this solution serves people who there's no other cure, there's no other position, there's no other route they can take, and for them this is kind of like the medicine. But I don't think someone with like bipolar disorder, there's like a lot of medication that they would likely have to go through before they get to the point of I'm going to end my life now. Like, I think assisted dying is just one of the many sort of medicines available to doctors, but it's one of those that they're not just going to reach for whenever someone's like, oh, I don't want to deal with life anymore. I think there's a lot more safeguards in place rather than it just kind of being, I don't want to live, here we go.
You know, I know it's not like that. It's not just go up to your GP, yeah, that's it, please give me a pill. It's like there's processes and all of that, but I think once you start the process, even if you like have glimmers of changing your mind in the future, you've already started it, so you might just go ahead with it because it's like the process has already begun. And I think there needs to be a way back. Instead of pushing like assisted dying, I think there needs to be more rehabilitative measures, more opportunities to help people see maybe that there's more to life, or that they could get more out of life in their last moments instead of just ending it.
But then those rehabilitative measures are what he's saying is all the therapy between, all the medications between. It's when those people are medication resistant and they can't get better from any of that, then they consider going abroad and doing measures like assisted dying. So they've gone through every single option in the pathway, most likely.
Yeah, I guess. But for me, it's not just it's not just like if it's immoral or not. For me, it's religious as well, because I don't think you should take your own life. I think your life is a gift. So even if it gets hard, or even if it becomes like unbearable towards the end, you should still try to like stick it out, do as much as you can with what you have.
I think it's a nice sentiment, but I don't know if I think that the ultimate thing in life is to have the control and the choice over what you do and how you do it, what you do with it. And if that means ending it, because that will be the better option overall, I think you're allowed that right.
I think, in my perspective, it's just kind of, I don't think we should force people to continue to live after a point whereby if someone's got a really degenerative type of cancer or some sort of, there's a plethora of diseases out there that make life quite unbearable. Same when someone enters like a vegetative state, things like that. I think at that point, what are we keeping this person alive for? Is it more for the people that are still alive and healthy, or is it really about them? And I think once it starts to split between we're keeping someone alive for our own sentiments and our morals of what we decide is good and bad compared to someone's like lived suffering, I think there's a difference, because in theory I can say life is a gift, but if someone's actual lived experience is so unbearable, it feels unfair for me to impose that, oh, you should live your life because I've said life is a gift. That's just how I see it, to be fair.
For me, I'm thinking if you open it up now for this specific thing, what happens later down the line when other people, they see it as, what's it called, like the easy way out, even though their condition might not be as severe, because what if later down the line they want to have, what's it called, like help to kill themselves, so maybe they have deep depression, maybe they have other mental issues, or they just, they don't see the point in living.
I think this argument of the floodgates argument essentially is what you're arguing, that if we allow X, then it will lead to Y and Z. I think the problem with that is it's often a cop-out from making like the reasoned argument. So for instance, when they wanted to introduce minimum wage, it was like, if we start a wage here, then what's going to say it's not going to be £50 an hour? But it's like, that ignores the fact that right now there's like an issue to be dealt with. So if you use the argument of, oh, it might get worse, for, like a solution that's very sort of contextualized and specific to something, to then say, oh, but what about in the future? Like, it's a form of whataboutism. Like, it's not really rooted in anything like on the ground.
I think the other aspect to it too is the whole, you're saying if it gets worse, but it's going to get better too, in the sense of like a Huntington's cure got developed this year, and that's like a disease that very severely deteriorates people's quality of life, and that would be a disease where they reach a terminally ill state where they can't feed themselves, they can't look after themselves in any essence, but now that's being given a treatment. So rather than it progressing in your direction where people are getting assisted dying for very minor things, more likely those things will be treated even more effectively, because medicine is always getting better. I like the hope. And by that point, those things will be treated and they won't have to consider assisted dying. A parliamentary inquiry has been launched by the Justice Committee titled Rehabilitation and Resettlement, Ending the Cycle of Reoffending. The scale of challenge is stark. Ministry of Justice data show a reoffending rate of 26.4% for adults and 56.6% for those released after less than a year in prison. In the report, the committee warns that 50% of prisoners are not engaged in work or education during their sentence, and most are unemployed 6 months after release. So the question, to what extent can prison truly rehabilitate? If it cannot, what would you propose as an alternative? I'll look right at you as the law student.
I think, to be fair, I think rehabilitation specifically is more like a sociological question anyway. But I think my view on that is, I think when people go to prison, it can often be really hard for them to reintegrate into society like meaningfully. So there's definitely perhaps like a problem there in that if people feel as though they've committed the crime, they've done their time, but they're still sort of being punished for their crime, even once they try to be a better person, does that push them back into crime in a way? So I think that is definitely something that should be considered and re-looked at.
For me, I think the whole prison system is just because sometimes it can even be worse than when you're outside. Because say outside you got done for like doing a petty crime, now you're in prison with murderers, all of this, and in prison there's gangs, there's like a hierarchy system, there's contraband. So in some ways it could even be worse than outside.
The first thing that came to my mind was Orange is the New Black. I don't know if either of you watched it, but
I haven't watched it.
It's really good. But one of the main characters, she gets released from prison, and then within 2 episodes she's back in because the system isn't built to support rehabilitation. It's when you go out there, you can't get a job as easily, you can't access things as easily. You've been cut off from society for a period of time, and it's that adjustment that there's not. I'm guessing there's not good enough support for me. I'm again hoping you guys know better than that on me, but yeah, I think that's the main. I don't think the prison is doing the rehabilitation. The prison is habilitating people to this new environment, this prison environment, and there's nothing in between. And then people can't fall back into society, and then reoffending occurs. It's a really bad cycle.
So I think essentially that the whole prison system, it needs a reform where it's more like society, and I think there needs to be more of like segregation, because putting first-time offenders who've done petty crime with like hardened serious criminals.
This is interesting actually, because I reckon there's probably a lot of people in society who argue that, okay, these people are reoffending, but what's it got to do with me? In that I'm not a crime committer, so why should we be given why should we give better prisons, or why should we give them better food? Like, they're serving their punishment, and if reintegration in society, they're not being welcomed with open arms. Perhaps that is just a part of the punishment of being a criminal. So I think there's also that argument to consider as well. Like, in a way, I think we have to understand why criminals are first worth reintegrating into society before we can understand how to do it effectively. And I think because Parliament, the public, and just people at large don't really have a true understanding of why criminals essentially are worth looking after and worth treating with value, that's where the problem comes in. Now, obviously, I'm not saying that, we should look after murderers or, there's certain crimes that obviously are unforgivable, but I think I don't think the public sees the value, and therefore that's why I feel like reforms haven't come in a certain way.
Yeah, I think people have such a big tendency to make in-groups and out-groups, and prison is probably one of the biggest ones where you're taught from such a young age, like, those are bad people, you shouldn't be like those people. Like, I feel like everyone in childhood was, like, told that in some way, even if it's not from your family, from TV, from the media you consume. Exactly. It's that big out-group of they're bad people, don't agree with them. And it creates what you're saying, it's that perfect divide where you don't want to support those people. I've never considered like that before, but it's so deeply ingrained in the way we interact with people like that.
And I think if we consider that a lot of crime, like your tendency to commit crime starts from a young age. It's the schools that you went to, the areas that you grew up in. So really and truly, I think people see the end result, the criminal that's committed the crime, but then oftentimes there's a forgetting that, this was a child that went to a certain type of primary school that grew up in a certain, like for instance, that grew up in a certain type of estate. There's a lot of factors that then mold how that person comes out to be.
I'm gonna be honest, I don't agree with that, because I feel like it's not your nature, like it's not where you grew up that makes you into a bad person or like an offender. Because even me, I grew up in a pretty bad area. The schools I went to weren't the greatest, but I think it's a conscious choice to to offend. But even if I think maybe it starts off a bit more innocent, but then as you go on, you're making the conscious choice to be there. Like, maybe at first you're just doing a few like misdemeanors, you're doing a few petty crimes with your mates or whatever when you're kids, but then to actively go try to join a gang, like, I get there's the element of like grooming or whatever, but then there's also safeguarding in place for that. We're constantly told when we're younger, don't talk to these types of people, don't take things from strangers, don't talk to strangers. So I think putting like criminality based on where you grew up, what schools you went to, I think that's just I mean, I think that's just nonsense, to be honest.
I feel like you're universalifying your own experience where you were taught it and you were reinforced it very heavily, but a lot of people, maybe they hear it a bit here and there in school from teachers who otherwise don't respond to them, don't teach them appropriately, don't listen to them. They don't hear it from anywhere else beyond that. So they respond to these other people who are giving them energy, who are listening to them. Because at the end of the day, all people want is to be listened to and to be heard. And if the wrong people are listening to you, you don't know that they're wrong people. And then you become like them and you follow in those footsteps. So I do definitely agree there's some autonomy to it, but I think what Mubaraq is saying is right, is that it's very much the environment shapes you and directs you in a certain direction, and you don't always have all the control to stop yourself from continuing down that path if you can't see anything else beyond.
I'm going to be honest, I still disagree because there was a lot of people in school who like, maybe they don't speak to the teachers, they don't interact with the teachers, but they make friends within school. But then there's people who make friends with people that are obviously bad influences, people who are like vaping, people who are doing this, people who are doing that. And then it's just like, you not have common sense. Like, you can see these people, they're not doing good, they're constantly in trouble. And then it's almost like you're trying to carve a path to destruction for yourself. So instead of doing that, why don't you just try a bit harder or avoid these specific types of people, because you can't get sucked into it unless you really want to. Because if you really need help, you can go speak to somebody, go speak to a teacher, go speak to, what's it called, safeguarding lead, whatever, because there's a lot of measures in place to help you. It's just, if you don't want the help, you're not going to be helped.
See, here's my opinion. I think when you're growing up, everything that you experience, the people in your proximity, even if you don't talk to them, you know, the lifestyles that you see, I think they shape you in ways that you don't even know. So even as you're stood here today, you likely feel like, oh, you've, you've shielded yourself from all of those bad influences. You know, you focused on what you needed to focus on and you got to where you got, right? But I think that ignores the fact that those things have influenced you in one way or another, and they just haven't manifested in a negative way, for instance. There's some people that all it takes is one interaction with the wrong type of person, just overhearing a conversation about what some people are going to go and do, you know, and that just slightly alters their path a little bit. I think it's the wrong argument to believe that you are successful because because you're an exception that then serves the rule. I think when we start leading down that type of route, it then becomes, okay, why put any sort of provisions in place for widening participation, things like that? Because why didn't you just work hard and open the textbook? It's then, oh, why are you poor? You should have just worked harder. But I think those type of mindsets ignore the fact that a lot of life is luck. A lot of people think, oh, they're so hard work and they're so successful, but a lot of it is, of course, preparation, hard work, practice. But a huge percentage of that is luck, even down to the place where you're born. It's luck. The hospitals that you're born in, you could have been born prematurely and not received the right type of care and not even been here today. You know, you could have been born in another hospital and perhaps the standards weren't so good, so your parents go through some sort of trauma whilst they're trying to give birth to you. Luck plays a huge, huge part. Even born in the UK is luck. You could have been born in another country and then the conversation wouldn't be gang violence, it would be you're like a child soldier, for instance. Then why didn't you just resist that? Like, there's luck in everything you do, but I think the government needs to combat luck to a certain extent. And that's what we mean when we say there's provisions beyond safeguarding measures, but we have to recognize that some people do have bad luck. Some people do just fall into bad gang. Did part of them say, okay, you know, do they wear their shoes and dress up and go there? Yes. But we can't deny the factors like surrounding them that made them think, oh, this is an acceptable decision for me to do. It's not about the actual act itself. It's about the idea that in principle, human beings, specifically children, will make bad decisions. Children especially are really, really bad at weighing up risk in a good way. That's something that scientists said, the law recognizes it. Children are very bad at weighing up risks. So I think it's unfair to then hold children to this standard and then say, you were groomed, you should have known better. Why did you not listen to the assembly? For instance, something like fireworks. We all had the assembly about be safe, about firework safety, but there's still firework accidents every single year after year.
Stupid.
But does that then mean ambulance services should just let people just burn?
I never said that.
No, but your argument is people make silly mistakes, tough on you, tough luck. we're not arguing that they haven't made a bad decision. We're saying that the government and policy should reflect the fact that people make mistakes, but let's at least, they've made the mistake now, but let's have some sympathy that it could have been you. I know you don't believe that. You really don't believe that you will ever make a mistake of that magnitude, but anyone can make a mistake. And I think that's where the sympathy comes from. For me, it's like, had I been born with different parents in a different area, could that have been me? Could I have then slipped and made a wrong mistake in that way? Then should the society as a whole turn their backs on me? That's the question I ask.
I don't think they should turn their back on them, but I think there should be more emphasis on common sense in society, because even adults, some of them, they're stupid enough. Someone says, oh, I'll give you £1,000, take the suitcase for me to this country. They still do. I think it's just a lack of common sense in society as a whole.
Let's end with our campus confession. So, this is from a real UCL student. I'm not sure I made the right choice in coming to study in London. I like the hustle and bustle, but it doesn't always feel safe. 2 of my friends have had their phones stolen in the past month, and another had her drink spiked at a club. My parents are constantly worrying, but I'm trying not to let it get to me. London feels pretty safe on the day-to-day. Why do I always have so much anxiety all the time? I've had my phone stolen in first year, so
Really?
hits hard, yeah.
I'm still yet to have anything stolen.
Lucky.
I'm going to be honest. I think London's safer now than it used to be, because back in the day, it was treacherous. Like, every day you're hearing people getting stabbed, acid attacks, all of this. I think nowadays it's just downgraded to like more petty crime, and it's more like people who are involved in that life going after each other. And I think overall it's safer, but you just have to have more common sense. You have to be careful. You have to, if you're on your phone, look around. Don't just be in your phone. You have to be aware of your surroundings, because it's good to, not like be paranoid, but just be aware, because not everybody's a nice person, especially in a city like this.
This person.
I would say, I think number one, I think a lot of the anxiety about living in London is a little bit mismatched, in that for those of us that live around UCL campus, like the Bloomsbury area, this is a very safe area, number one, in comparison to other parts of the country and London. So I think on that front, a part of it is just relaxing. Like, it's actually not that dangerous. But then two, I think there's certain safety risks that if you're not from a big city, will be new to you. So for instance, like phone snatching, I think that just kind of comes part and parcel of being in a big city. Same with going out to the club, and there will be people out there. So the guidance around like watching your drink has always been a thing. So I think it's just about, like you said, being more conscientious about your surroundings. But I don't think London is that unsafe. I think obviously they've happened to come across a lot of unfortunate mishaps, but I do think the media definitely emphasizes a lot of the bads of London. But like day to day, I genuinely don't think it's that terrible.
I don't blame them for feeling so much anxiety all the time, because I do still get paranoid with my phone now since that happened. It was actually in Bloomsbury. It was by Russell Square, so it was very close by.
Oh, I've heard. Yeah, apparently Russell Square is really bad for that. Yeah,
he cycled past me, took it off me, and went away. Don't know where that one is now. And I think one of my friends had it twice in Camden recently. So the area is.
I was talking to my friend about this, and I said, this isn't to victim blame or anything, but I feel like after you get your phone stolen for the first time, and they then steal your phone a second time, I feel like it just starts to give off the impression that there's something you're repeatedly doing, or there's you have a look that says, "I'll easily phone snatched," which I think you should probably think about. So the person that submitted this should probably just be a little bit more about their wits. And
they hadn't had that stolen yet, actually. 2 of their friends, so they're fine for now. But the people who hung around with, look up what they're doing wrong and don't do that. Probably that's advice for them.
I'd say best thing to do, keep your phone in your pocket unless you're sitting inside the cafe or you've got a wall behind you. Just make sure there's remove the possibility that it can be stolen, because even people pickpockets, they'll steal it from your pocket. So I'd say constantly check that it's still in your pocket, make sure it's on you. Don't pull it out unless you can see everybody around you, you're aware of your surroundings. And if you're gonna hold your phone, at least maybe try to hold it with 2 hands, or hold it with a good grip so it can't just be pulled so easily. And there's even like straps and stuff you can get now where you attach it to your wrist so that like if they try to grab it, it won't be taken away so easily.
Yeah, I remember after mine got stolen, I was always back against the wall for like a good month, and then I stopped caring. It's like, oh, I won't have it out anymore. It won't happen again. Thank you for tuning in to Campus Conversations. We hope you had as much fun listening as we did chatting. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like and subscribe on our various podcast streaming platforms, link in the bio. We'll be back again with more stories, ideas, and debates across UCL, exploring the people and perspectives shaping our university and world. Until next time on Campus Conversations.